Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm joined by Ken. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Excellent. So we've just been kind of hanging out and talking about cats and dogs mostly as we get ready to do this. But if you'd be so kind of introduce yourself and tell people kind of a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm Ken Spencer. I'm a game designer and writer. I've been in the industry for quite a while. I'm working now for Frog God and Necromancer Games, as well as running my own shop, Why Not Games, on the side. But I've worked in the past for Chaosium, Steve Jackson, Cubicle 7, Aliftar, and a whole bunch of gunmetal games last year. My CV's 3 pages, so I can't remember everyone I've worked
Yeah.
for in the past decade and a half. But I do writing, designing, editing, conversion work from time to time. And I'm always happy to come and talk about our latest project, which is the Tome of Wondrous Items 5e.
Yeah. Peck had reached out to me and been like, hey, do you want to talk about this thing? I got this guy Ken you can talk to about it. And I'm like, sure, that's what we do pretty much most days here is bring people on and talk about D&D stuff and sometimes other games as well. So so what is the current project you guys are working on?
We're running a Kickstarter right now for the Tome of Wondrous Items for 5e. It is a magic item catalog. It's got all the stuff that you would expect to find in a magic item catalog, from armor to weapons, rings, staves, rods, wands, potions, scrolls, wondrous items, which, I'm used to calling miscellaneous magic items, but wondrous items works just as well. Plus, we've added a few new things: otherworldly items, which are items not from a fantasy world that have ended up there somehow. So that draws upon such concepts as the old Expedition of the Barrier Peaks, where it introduces some sci-fi items seen as a magic item, as well as things from our modern world that's fallen through portals, or Lovecraftian horrors that you'd rather not deal with, like the brain jar, which is a jar you put a brain in.
Nice.
And then we conclude it with magical tattoos.
You can never have too much ink in your game.
No, you can't. Or on the body.
Or on the body. Yeah, I'm about to get some. I'm excited because actually, what's today? Today's Thursday. A week from today, I'm getting some more ink.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah. So anybody who's interested in tattoos should be following Chad Road Tattoos either on Instagram, Twitter, or wherever you can find them. But he's got a couple shops in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
And so the 1 year that me and Ted went for Gen Con, I don't know if you see
Oh,
my
nice.
goblin with the lighting. He had done that and put a Nerdarchy logo on Ted. We ran out of time because the goblin should have the Nerdarchy logo behind it. So finally going to get that finished up, and then I'm going to get a flaming, screaming D20 on the inside of my bicep. So trying to block off the left arm, get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been patiently waiting to get another tattoo. I had shingles, so my nerves aren't quite recovered yet. And tiny needles is not something that works well with nerve damage.
No, that sounds about accurate.
Yeah, it's
Because
something that you get over. It just, gotta wait.
yeah, my wife has had shingles several times. She also has this like weird autoimmune disease and has had nerve damage. So like her right arm is always kind of tingly like that and numb-ish. So my son's like, you should just get a tattoo on that arm. It won't hurt as much. I'm like, it might actually be much worse because of the nerve damage.
Yeah, I can still feel my COVID booster from Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
um. So, how much did you take part in making the magical tattoos in this book?
I wrote pretty much the entire book. There was a
Okay.
few points of inspiration that were provided by other people at Frog God, but those are along the lines of, hey, here's a cool idea. Or they just give me a name of a magic item. And I'm like, what does it do? And they're like, well, you're the writer.
Yeah. So that's funny. Look, I gave you the name, writer. Write stuff.
Exactly.
So, how many magic items are you shooting for?
Ah, the Kickstarter says over 600, and
Yeah.
I stopped counting while I was working on it. So some of them are very short descriptions, some of them are multi-page descriptions. Some of them are linked together. We introduced a new rule for 5e of panoplies. So it's a collection of magic items that form a set. So if you just have one piece, it has its power. But if you have another specific piece from the set, they are both more powerful. And if you have the full set, then more powers awaken within the items.
Do you have a favorite magic item that you've made for this project?
I have a ton that I really enjoy from this project. I went with a lot of useful items rather than ones that just let you cast a spell.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there's several sets of items that are the bricks of building. There's different types. So it's just a brick, usually with some sort of sigil on it. So for example, the brick of wells, you throw it down, speak the command word, and it builds a well with a little hut over it and a wind in a bucket. There's other ones that build specific types of buildings or build a wall. And I think it's a useful, fun thing to have for an adventurer to say, wherever I go, here's a well. And if you're doing a desert hex crawl, you need to quest for that brick of wells beforehand. It's much more important than having your magic sword or armor.
That's funny. I just as soon as you mentioned the brick, I'm just thinking of like a paperweight.
Exactly.
What does this magic item do? It holds my papers down.
It holds, yeah, and it can't be moved.
They can't be moved.
And then there's other things. One of the panoplies is the Stones of Pavaroth, which are a ring, a stone hinge of monoliths. And they're a magic item individually, but if you can get them placed with the right celestial alignment, they become more powerful. So it's the idea that this is a magic item, but it's different. It's not one you're going to find in the Dragon's Treasure Hoard and necessarily haul around with you on the rest of your adventures. You're going to want to establish a place to put this thing.
So we got a question coming in from the chat. It's a pretty good question. Sure. Phil Swift, Destroyer of Worlds, wants to know, what are your main do's and don'ts for making magic items?
My main don't is I, as a reader and as a dungeon master and as a player, is I don't like magic items that are very plain. I think the prime example would be your standard sword +1. That's nice, but it's really just a mechanical bonus in the game, and it doesn't have a lot of flavor. It doesn't have a lot of context, and it doesn't do anything outside of combat. I like magical items that the player can come up with new and interesting ways to use it. And the DM can say, well, this is part of the backstory of my world because this magic item would be built by such and such a person or made for a specific use, that sort of thing. That's my don't. My do's is they have to be fun. And that's the core of all game writing is we're here to have a good time. And a magic item has to be fun. It could be fun in the way it's implemented in the game. It could be fun in the way the players use it. It could be fun in the name. While researching this, my background originally is as an archaeologist. So I draw on archaeology and history and material culture around the world and throughout time for inspiration. And in my research, there is a type of Middle Eastern robe called an abba. So naturally, we have the abba of the Dancing Queen.
Did you have a specialty?
It has a nice effect, but it's fun because it's a little pun there amongst all the other things.
Yeah. Did you have a specialty in archaeology?
Yes, my specialty in archaeology was contact period North America.
Nice.
That's the listed specialty with my degree. My actual work was in prehistoric North America because that's what pays in this country.
Looking for dinosaurs.
Well, after dinosaurs, but yeah. A lot of actually, I got to do very little contact period archaeology, mostly around Indianapolis moving cemeteries.
Yeah. Nice. So that, I mean, that seems like a fun career in and of itself, though. Like, I mean, it's also probably one of the hard. It's probably highly competitive.
It's a very difficult career in some ways, and that is both physically and mentally demanding. You have to be able to move. What was it? Let's see, about 400 centimeters of dirt a day with a shovel, and at the same time, do all the appropriate mapping, data collecting, artifact analysis, write up your reports. So it's a very mentally and physically demanding job. A lot of people burn out on it pretty quick, but it is a lot of fun. I went all over the country, dug in all sorts of things, from 7,500-year-old burials on the way up to the Colorado Coalfield War from the 19 teens.
Yeah, although you did make it sound a little less fun with all that math and digging.
The math isn't that bad. We had to take one of the required classes is a trigonometry course.
Yeah.
Largely for navigation and mapping. And I struggled with it, and I passed and was like, man, that was rough. When I get out there and my degree and in the field, how's it going to be? In my first job, they handed me a clipboard, and it had all the trigonomic calculations, because you got a square unit and you got to have the hypotenuse.
Yeah.
It's just one example, and had charts of that taped on the back and laminated.
Oh, so yeah, you're like, oh, why did I even learn this stuff?
Exactly.
I feel like that's most jobs anyway, though, right? Like you go to school and then you go and learn how to do the job afterwards. So it doesn't sound like you had to deal with many booby traps or rolling boulders.
Not as many as you'd think. Not so much Nazis, but on a couple of land surveys, I had people question what I was doing on their property.
Oh, yeah.
Question with the drawn gun. So that was disturbing. Usually, though, it worked out pretty well. You'd say, hey, we're from the archaeological survey team. You should have gotten a letter.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's you guys. Why don't you come up to the big house for a glass of lemonade? It's hot today.
Yeah. Lemonade on a hot day is way better than hot lead on a hot day.
Exactly.
For sure.
And, the usual snakes, inclement weather, that sort of thing. It's a fun job, but it was one that I reached a point in my life where I was married and planning to have a family, and I didn't want to be gone for 150, 160 days a year.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes that's things you don't think about when you're like young and making these life determining decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. When, you're 21 and, you're getting out there like, hey, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to bounce around the country living in my pickup truck and staying in whatever hotel the boss puts me up in.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Also, I'm generally not impressed with the advice given by academic advisors either. So.
Yeah. I lucked out in that my academic advisor had done contract archaeology work.
Yeah.
In his bachelor's and his master's. And he said, you need to go do that. Not only do you actually learn on the ground archaeology better than I can teach you in a classroom, but it's horrible in the end, and you don't want to do it the rest of your life, and nothing makes you want to go to grad school more.
So how much of that stuff have you used for inspiration in your games?
Oh, tons. I'm always drawing on history and archaeology. One of the things I like to describe is that I don't just write about explorations into the unknown and hidden ruins. I've done it, and I know the fun parts, and that's what shows up in the games. And I know the horrific parts. And if it's that kind of adventure, then that's what the players get to experience too.
Nice. Is there anything from your career specifically that has found its way into a game?
That's hard to say. And I'm thinking back over, decade and a half of writing. I'm sure there are specific incidents, but it's the sort of thing where I haven't based an entire book around it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of my work in prehistoric North America that shows up in the Tome of Wondrous Items because I drew a lot on archaeology for inspiration for the items. There are things in there that, like it's not prehistoric North America, it's Hellenistic Greece, but the Antikythera mechanism, that's one of the magic items in it. If you're familiar with it, It's found in a shipwreck, and it's a complex clockwork and geared really more than clockwork device that we're not real certain what it was used, possibly celestial charting, but insanely complex for anything else from that time period. And it hints at some other things that existed that we know about from literature but have never actually seen. I thought that's a great little thing. And it's a disc with levers and gears and a button. And in Tome of Wondrous Items, it is used for transportation amongst the planes. But it's very complex. So if you want your character to spend time analyzing and studying it, you can use it for a planar hopping campaign. Or you can spin the dials and the wheels and the gears, press the button, and roll on the D100 table.
I feel like that'll get way more use with a lot of my players. They're just going to make like Wheel of Fortune and hit the button.
Yeah, and that's perfectly legitimate. That's a fine way to use it. And there's other things, banner stones, autols, those sorts of things that I'm familiar with from my own archaeological work. Recent finds of, you may have remembered back during 2020, there was the little news story about the crystal weapons that were found.
I didn't actually see that.
Yeah, so they're obviously ceremonial weapons. They're prehistoric, napped out of quartz crystal instead of napped out of chert or flint. So you couldn't use it for anything. It would shatter. So I thought, well, that's fun. I wonder what they would do in a magical world. Yeah. So they're really good against insubstantial beings and ghosts and the undead, that sort of thing.
Do you remember the glass steel spell from previous editions?
Yes.
That's how they were used.
Yeah, it's early class steel.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that in it. There's a lot of, this is a thing you find, but just because you find it, you know what it does. So there's items with hidden uses that only by experimenting with the item can the players figure out what it does.
So, currently this is the project you're working on, but do you have a preferred thing to write, whether it's, whether it is magic items or, classes or lore or
if
whatever?
I get my choice to write anything, I write settings. I love writing settings. I love creating new cultures and new worlds and new ways that they can be explored and new things for the players to explore. That's by far my favorite. Most of what I do, though, is things like the Tome of Wondrous Items, general purpose books. I worked on Tome of Horrors 2020. And I do a lot of adventure writing for Frog God Games, as well as strategic planning and, those sorts of higher level, let's get together and figure out what we want to do in 2025 sort of things. But what I love best is creating settings. I started at Frog God with Northland Saga and creating a fantasy world based on the Norse sagas, instead of necessarily from the history from the sagas. And instead of trying to recreate history in a fantasy world, how about draw the inspiration from there instead of from Tolkien?
Cool. So what other settings have you worked on then?
I did that. I've worked a lot on various parts of the Lost Land settings, City of Reen. I've done some work on World of the Lost Lands book, of course. And then I did, eventually it was entitled Blood Tide for Chaosium. It was a dark fantasy pirates using the historical Caribbean as the basis. And of course, Rocket Age is the setting I developed at Cubicle 7 and took with me when I left to start my own company. Those are the ones I've created or worked on long enough where I'm one of the creators of a major part of it. And then at Cubicle 7, I worked on the One Ring quite a bit, as well as the One Ring.
I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm like, is that the one that got made or almost got made?
That's the one that got made.
Okay.
They had two, well, if you count revised, maybe 2 editions of it there.
Yeah.
Plus the Adventures in Middle Earth, which was the 5e conversion of it. So I worked on that quite a bit there.
And then after that, they were working on another one, and then I guess the license moved.
Yes, they lost the license and it reverted to their partner, Sophisticated Games, who technically was the license holder,
Okay.
and they went to Fria Liga, I do
Free League,
believe.
yeah.
And then they are putting out, I just got an email that the PDF for it's going on sale soon.
Yeah,
One
like
ring.
they did like $1 million, $2 million Kickstarter or something, I think.
Yeah, kind of interesting how that turned out.
Yeah. It's like I know a few people that were working on it before it got pulled. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I guess all that work's done.
Yeah, there were suggestions at Cubicle 7 that Adventures in Middle Earth, the 5e version of the One Ring, the first actual Tolkien meets D&D book.
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
We had
Didn't happen.
we had gone through that pretty extensively. We have a bunch of videos on that. And then I got to play in a live play with Guy Slanders from How to Be a Great GM had run a session of that.
It's a fun way to look at 5e. It's very different in many ways because it's meant to capture the Tolkien experience rather than the D&D experience, because they're actually two different things, despite how much they look on the surface.
Yeah.
Tolkien's work is not D&D. It's an inspiration, but it's not D&D. Some of the underlying conceits just aren't there.
Yeah, when people would ask us like, how do I play like a non-magic or low magic D&D, I'm like, play Middle Earth. Like whether you want to actually play in Middle Earth or you just want to rip out that rule set, it would work. It works really well for low magic.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. We well, I have an ending and origins for it, so I kind of have to be proud of it.
Yeah.
But it was a good year and a half of my life dedicated to that, and I was running 2 playtest groups a week of it because we wanted to make sure we got the system right, because we didn't want to hand something off to the 5e crowd and have them look at it and go, well, this isn't 5e.
Yeah. That works really well with the rule set. It's also it's kind of brutal too. Like it's a very like it's a much grittier version of 5e.
Exactly. Well, Tolkien's work, combat occurs quite frequently, but there's never without a price. It's never combat that doesn't have a toll. It's definitely not Howard or Fritz Lieber, where heroic combat and then you move on to the next encounter.
Yeah, I sadly I am more of a fan of the movies than I am the books. Like I'm glad I read them, but like I can't go back and enjoy that style. And I know there are people that read like those books every year. I'm like,
No, I've read them. I just enjoy them in a different way now that I've had to write in that universe.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
I guess I just prefer my action more heroic.
I do too. I'm more of a Howard and Lieber fan when it comes to fantasy.
Like, there's enough realism in the real world for me.
Well, my biggest critique of Tolkien has always been that it's a very British look at wilderness. And being a person from North America who's spent a lot of time in wilderness areas, sometimes in some very deep wilderness areas far from civilization, I don't have that sense of impending doom and horror and, crushing despair because I happen to be in the trees.
Yeah. Have you spent any time in the Pine Barrens?
In Jersey?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
We just shot a video the other day about the Jersey Devil. I just finished up a Monster of the Week campaign, and the Jersey Devil kind of bookended the campaign. So I don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of lore there that was kind of fun to poke and prod at, and things that I didn't even know. Having grown up in Jersey.
And that's one of the things when I worked on monster books I enjoy is looking at folklore and going, well, how do we turn this into a fantasy D&D style monster? And there's a lot of fun stuff here in Indiana. We've got the ongoing folklore about a catamount.
I'm
And
not familiar with that one.
yeah, it's common in most of the Great Lakes Midwest is that, and it has to do with the lingering, mountain lion, because
Uh-huh.
there were mountain lions here and they, went extinct fairly quickly. But the catamount it's a mountain lion on steroids, but somehow it's stealthy. And people to this day in the rural areas will still say, well, yeah, I saw it. I saw the glimpse of its butt and its tail as it slinked away from the farm into the woods. It's like
Yeah.
there is no way this tiger-sized creature is prowling the state of Indiana. Uh, but stranger things happen. We now have bears in the state for the first time in over a century.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I mean, we've always had bears, but like we have little ones, black bears, right? In
yeah.
Jersey.
Black bears have been swimming across the Ohio River from Kentucky and have now established themselves in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, it's funny how when you drive them out of their natural habitat, that
Exactly.
they figure out someplace else to live.
Exactly. But they're
Uh,
coming back. And there's been active attempts. I mean, we've got bald eagles now that have been reintroduced, river otters, beavers. There's a lot of animals that have been brought back by the Department of Natural Resources. And this is probably the largest animal that just said, you know what? We're coming back.
yeah,
And we're
yeah.
it's kind of shaken up some of the hiking community here in southern Indiana, because we've always been like, well, what's dangerous out there? Rattlesnakes, cottonmouth.
Yeah.
That's about it. And now it's like, I could be walking down the trail and face a bear. And they're like, I don't know if I'm going to go hiking again. And I grew up out west and I did a lot of archaeology work in the Rocky Mountains. And I'm like, first of all, that's not really a bear.
Yeah. Maybe. But when it's gnawing on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A little bit like, come talk to me when you're hiking along and you come
Mhm.
around the bend and there's, a hill and the grass up ahead in the meadow. And you're like, that's an unusually colored hill. And then it stands up and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not a hill.
Bears are crazy. Well, it's funny because like I've had a lot of guests on from like Australia, and then I always rib them about like everything tries to kill her there. He's like, yeah, but we don't have great cats and bears. You guys have bears and great
Well,
cats
yeah.
over there.
In
Mm.
college, I was taking a couple classes with a fellow who was from Senegal. And he said, can I go hiking with you sometime? And I'm like, you grew up as a boy, you're a member of the Boy Scouts in Senegal. You're not going to be impressed by what we've got here. It's like, no, I want to see a deer.
Oh yeah,
A deer. You have gazelle, man.
yeah, yeah. But I guess imagine like depending on where you come from too, like seeing a moose for the first time.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly. And he was excited about, even our small animals. He's, your squirrels are so different and they're so cute. And
yeah.
you've got raccoons. Raccoons are amazing. I'm like, raccoons are a nuisance, man. You jump.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, so I'm down in South Jersey. Most of our bear population's up north, but the one
Mhm.
year like there was a bunch of sightings of brown bear or not brown, but blacks down here, which isn't normal. We don't. I don't know if they kept seeing the same bear over and over, or if it's a couple of them. But a friend of mine, who lives up like the northwest by like I guess the Delaware Water Gap, like they were having a problem with bears coming up on their deck, where they're like the window of their kitchen is when they would like cook and stuff, right? And they call it like animal control, and they're like, what can we do? So they're like, I can't tell you what to do specifically, but have you ever considered getting something that's loud and goes bang?
Oh,
But
I'd be a little leery of that. The Lewis and Clark expedition, I mind you, it's a grizzly bear, but they
yeah.
shot it something like 28 times with 50 caliber and upsized bullets before it went down.
Ugh. Yeah, yeah, you might just make it angry.
Yeah, yeah. Angry wounded bear does not sound like a good time.
No, no. But it is always fun to see the videos of the bear family that shows up into someone's backyard and starts using their pool.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
it's not so great for the people because bears are very inconsiderate and they will trash your stuff. They don't care. But I mean,
yeah.
bears are fun to watch.
Oh yeah, I'm happy that bears have returned. I hope that we can settle them in some of like the Dean Wilderness area or the Hoosier National Forest where they can, frolic and do bear stuff, and that might take care of our constant deer overpopulation problems. Because the coyotes aren't doing the trick, lazy bastards.
Yeah. I don't know that bear. I know they can, but I don't know that bear actually hunt deers particularly. I don't know. They're fast, but I don't think they're deer fast.
Yeah, well, maybe they can grab some of the small ones.
Maybe
Well,
we get a lot of deer in our backyard, and every once in a while I'll take the dog out at night, and she'll see something. I'm like, "What are you gonna do if you catch it?" Like that thing. That thing is like 5 times the size of you.
yeah. One of the thing about Indiana and deer that struck me was living in Indianapolis and discovering that there's deer who live in the city.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was tending my grandmother's garden, and she's got a woodlot behind her, but she's in the suburbs. So, it's not like it's, the 100-acre woods. It's not even an acre worth of woods wide, but it's maybe, a mile long and stretches across several backyards. And I'm tending her garden, and I go out one morning, and there's deer tracks all over the place, and the corn's gone. What? Where are they coming from?
Well, you know what though, like sometimes it does kind of make sense because there's less hunters closer to civilization.
Exactly.
So like
Exactly.
they kind of get driven in because they're like, I don't know. People aren't
Yeah.
shooting over here.
And that's what gets me, that these little pockets of woodlands throughout the city
Yeah.
have deer in them. And if you have deer, they've got skunks, they've got raccoons, and it's just this interesting little microsystem.
Where I live is really weird because it's like it used to be all rural, but it's built up so much now. But it's still not, I wouldn't call it suburbs either. Like you just have
Yeah.
pockets of developments all over the place and shopping centers, but then you also have like lots of wide open and like, up and down. Like I live on a county road, so like the back of my property is butts up to horse pens, and then like all up and down the road there's like different farm animals, but I wouldn't say they're farms per se. And any given day it's like it seems like every yard has chickens in the front of it, but
Yeah.
it's so bizarre. It's like this like in between rural and suburbs.
Oh, I get it. South side of Indy, especially the southeast side, developed like that in recent years. So
Yeah.
where there's, a housing development and even some gated communities, and then in between there's hobby farms or, a 40-acre field of soybeans, and then there's another big housing complex or apartment complex, and it's that sort of patchwork.
We
That's
get we get flocks of turkey every once in a while. I haven't seen them
oh
in a
yeah.
while. But it's funny, like I didn't realize turkeys could fly until I see a
Unless you
turkey go
drop it
by
from a
my
helicopter.
window in the bedroom, right? And my
Yeah.
bedroom's on the second floor. And there's the eave out there, and they're like hanging out up there, walking around. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, well, where I live now is a small town, surrounded by farmland, and there'll be turkeys on Main Street,
Yeah.
and the police have to go round them up and do something about it, because they a couple years ago they flew into the coffee shop window and crashed right through the plate glass and ran wild inside the coffee shop.
Oh no.
It was overnight. No one was there. No one
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah.
They
I
weren't
heard
just
you
working.
don't serve my kind around here. Well, guess what? we're coming. We're coming. I mean, like that sounds like a great start of an adventure for a D&D party as well.
The turkeys crash in.
Yeah, yeah. Although, I mean, we
I'm steering clear of turkeys. Casey Christopherson's Feast of the Gobbler, I think, did everything that could be done with turkeys for right now, which is
I
a
mean,
great adventure to run around Thanksgiving.
Wizards of the Coast did give us a Bizzle chickens, so
Yeah.
why not?
And there's always the cockatrice.
There is always the cockatrice. I do love taking like fun things like that and just like inserting into the game, especially ridiculous stuff. So, what's your favorite non D&D game to play?
Oh, geez, that's a hard one. I mean, of course, I'm partial to the Vortex system, which powers Rocket Age Classic because it's mine. It's my
Yeah,
game. I didn't write the Vortex system, but implemented it in a new way.
I'm not
Uh,
familiar with that system. What is the
it's
Vortex system?
there. There's three games that ever used it. The Primeval game from Kipple 7, the Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space game, and then Rocket Age. So when I left Kipple 7, I took a license for it with me. So
Okay.
I can using it for Rocket Age because we do Rocket Age and Vortex, which we call Rocket Age Classic and 5e. We have a 5e conversion of it. I would have to say probably Savage Worlds is my go-to if there isn't a system specifically for something. Um, it's generic enough to cover any genre or wild idea you come up with, but it's got enough meat to it so that people coming from, say, D&D aren't going to be looking at a rules light
Yeah.
uh, story point driven system. They're just seeing something that's more of a traditional role playing game system with skills and attributes and edges and that sort of thing. But it's not so meaty that like some games that are specialized for a specific genre or setting are very meaty, and that's fine and it works well. But you can't use that meaty system for everything.
Since Rocket Age is your game that you made, what is Rocket Age?
Rocket Age is the 1938 that never was in a solar system that should have been. It is an alternate history retro punk, radium punk sci-fi. It's pulpy, it's over the top. It's an open homage to Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and science fiction of the 30s and 40s, at the same time deconstructing some of the less tasteful tropes of it. So, for example, the Rocket Rangers, the US Rocket Rangers, are the big damn brave heroes. And they've been indoctrinated to believe that, they are the best of the best. So, since they're the best of the best, we can't exclude women or people based on skin color, because if they're the best of the best, they belong with us. So it takes the big hero speech from American sci-fi from the 30s and 40s and says, well,
Uh,
what if people actually believe that and apply it? It's also a game of punching Nazis on Mars.
well, that never gets old.
That never gets old. So there's a lot going on with it. We've got in Classic, we've got the core book. We've got Heroes of the Solar System, which is a player's guide. We've got Blood Red Mars, which is all about Mars, and Lure of Venus, which is all about Venus, and Imperial Jupiter, which is all about Jupiter and its moons. And 13 adventures. We just released earlier this year Bold Brigands of the Belt, which is an adventure Ed Greenwood did for us.
Oh,
And
cool.
that's in Classic. And we also have Rocket Age 5e, which is bringing all the Classic material into 5e and creating new stuff like the Rocket Rangers Handbook, which is a sort of an in-universe guide. It's been commented on by some of the reoccurring characters in the Rocket Age fiction on the inside.
What is your preferred genre to play?
It varies. Right now, it's fantasy. And fantasy, I think, is the default for everyone just about everyone in the hobby. You end up going back to fantasy again and again. I enjoy sci-fi, and horror, but I feel both you have to have the right sort of group for.
Yeah.
Because they're very acquired tastes. I do a lot of historical stuff. As I call it History Plus. So, it could be my pitch to the group is, hey, let's do Viking era Britain with you guys playing the Danes rampaging across Britain, plus Cthulhu.
All right. So up until that point, you're losing me. Uh, I've got like zero desire to play historical anything.
And that's what most people, yeah. Our last year, one of our we had a great time, and it took up most of last year's gaming. Some of the previous years
Yeah.
was we took the Octa and Cthulhu sort of, World War II plus Cthulhu, and said, great, but what if we start at Guadalcanal and you're just a bunch of jarhead Marines
Yeah.
with no supernatural training, no supernatural knowledge, and we go from there. And we turned that into, Marines versus Cthulhu, and it was a blast. We turned it up to the pulp line, so that, the
Was it
by
hard to get to the point where they're playing it like a Cthulhu game and
they
not?
never went into the whole investigative phase.
Yeah.
No, they were real quick, like, okay, let's identify what this thing is. Let's try and figure out what could kill it by asking some of the people who survived its attacks. Great. So what are you going to do? And the answer is, well, I got my satchel charge. I've got the flamethrower lit with a D12 strength. Can I fire a BAR in each hand?
uh, so they did play. It was kind of like D&D.
It was a monster stomping sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had that. What really set it apart was we did a system where every week they wrote letters home in character.
Okay.
And then I, as the GM, wrote letters in response, and we sent them out to each other over Discord.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so that was this subplot of their personal lives going on. But then they've also got this other stuff, this Cthulhu stuff happening. And eventually they moved up to, where they're working with the US government's supernatural secret organization that's trying to figure out what's going on. So they're getting intel at the start of missions, and then trying to use that intel to not go too far off the rails,
Nice.
which they often did. But yeah, it was a fun campaign, and the letter interaction was a lot of fun because we're using Savage Worlds, and one of the players said, hey, I want to have a hindrance. My character managed to escape from the Philippines before the fall because he killed someone, took his dog tags, and of course nobody could figure it out because there's not a whole lot of photo ID.
Uh-huh.
Great. And then he started getting the letters.
Oh, I had to pretend to be this person.
He had to pretend to be this person. So the first letter was from, his new bride who he married right before shipping out to the Philippines.
Oh yeah.
So the player's like, oh man, that's rough.
This is going to be an awkward reunion.
Yeah. And then the next letter is from his mistress in Hawaii. And now he's going, wait a second, maybe this guy wasn't a good guy.
Oh, that's funny. Unlike the other players, you kind of had carte blanche because he had no idea who the person was.
Exactly. The other character's like, okay, here's the person who's the most important I'm getting my letters from. And one character, it was his grandmother, and it evolved during the campaign. The grandmother kept sending him pictures of girls from the neighborhood. When you get back, maybe you should.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a chance when you're not being a war hero, you can send a letter to.
Yeah. Trying to set him up. That's funny. As grandmothers do.
As grandmothers do.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Some of them like to read the letters to the rest of the party. Some of them kept them quiet. Naturally, the one who was, an imposter kept it quiet. And then they would also get care packages. So they'd get, a list or photos. You'd grab photos off the internet and put a quick PDF together of this is what's in the box.
Oh yeah. Sweet. So how did you get into RPGs playing?
Well, it was 1984. I'm a military brat. We had just recently got moved. And instead of staying in an apartment near the base, we moved into a Victorian era farmhouse out in the countryside in a town of about 300 people. And since I didn't get along well with the other two kids, that's it. In my grade, I needed something to do. My dad's a big Avalon Hill war gamer.
Okay.
So I was at the mall, which was in the town of an hour and a half away. And I had some saved up allowance and went into the back KB Toys, and I'm looking at, board games. And I see this red box that says Dungeons and Dragons. I go, I wonder what that's about. So I pull off the shelf, and it's got that huge Larry Elmore art of the warrior fighting the dragon. I'm like, hey, I've seen ads for this in the back of the Conan comics. I'm going to get this and I'm going to play this game. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I open it up and there's no hex board. There's no counters. How does this work? And trying to figure that out on my own, I fell in love with it. And I started buying up the solo modules, which were common at that time, and playing those until we got transferred again. And I met some other kids who played D&D, and it just sort of shot off from there.
Yeah. How long did it from discovering the red box to actually playing with other people? How long did that take?
About 10 months. So I think that's kind of where I started becoming, my own DM, my own creator, my own writer sort of thing, because there was nobody else to enjoy it with me. My dad tried, but he's like, look, I can't do this if there isn't a cardboard square and a hex map. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know
There's
what's
no
going
map,
on.
there's no pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it moved up from then. And
no younger siblings to recruit, huh?
My sister, well, oddly, I have a half sister. We didn't grow up together, but she's 4 years older than me, and she was living at that time about 600 miles north of me, and was discovering in almost the exact same month and year Dungeons and Dragons on her own.
Oh, cool. Kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits.
It's in the DNA or something.
Yeah. And, we've played together a couple of times since becoming adults, and we ended up living in the same city for several years. But yeah, that sort of thing. And kindred spirits, my wife plays. Our son has grown up with it because it's been my business. My wife helps run Why Not Games. So to him, it's the family business, and it's just part of his life. And he's in
his
the
legacy
D&D
didn't hurt, huh?
Yeah, well, we have told him that. I've been like, hey, gestures over at the stack of books in our dining room waiting to go to the next convention. I'm like, this is your inheritance. And he's like, yeah, I'll hire someone to manage it, Dad. Like, come on. Yeah. But he's been playing games with us and with our friends since he was I think 6. He started playing a Pathfinder game with a character sheet made so that's easier for him to figure it out. And
yeah.
His big thing, he's big into 5e right now. Can't get him to stop playing a Dragonborn rogue.
Yeah.
And he plays that and Magic, and he's in our Sunday Pendragon campaign.
Yeah, I think my son is currently trying to recruit his girlfriend to play a game. And I think he's going to try and get his younger cousin to run it.
Oh, good.
He just turned 21. His girlfriend's right around the same age. And then my nephew, I think, is 13, 14, somewhere around there. I don't know. He's like yay big. I don't know. He's almost as big as me now. So
my son is now 5'9". So I'm 6'3", and on my mom's side, I'm the smallest male.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's taller than my wife. He's taller than my mom. He's almost going to be taller than my dad.
How old is he now, if you don't mind me asking?
13.
Oh, yeah. See, we're short in my family. Like 5'9" is like where we max it out.
No, he's still got years of growing, which we have to explain to him because he's gotten into costumes and LARPs. And he's showing us his Christmas list. And I'm like, look, kid, I know you want to shoot a Roman armor, but you're 13.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's going to be on sale on Black Friday. I'm like, that's not the reason.
Yeah. The reason is it's not going to last you but 6 months.
Yeah, we're first of all, we're not buying you a $400 suit of armor. flat
Yeah.
out. Second of all, I don't care if it's Black Friday, we're not buying it for you.
Yeah.
Second of all, you're going to wear it for 6 months. By Gen Con, it's going to be too small.
Yeah. Were you at Gen Con this year?
No, we didn't. We skipped it this year. My wife had COVID in August. I mean, we're vaccinated, but she still got a breakthrough infection in August. So we decided that was, and she wasn't feeling up to it by September, and figured, you know what, let's just play it safe this year and plan for the next year. But we usually go.
Yeah, that makes sense. And me and my wife, I wasn't going to go. And then I was like, I was just so tired of being cooped up after 2020 and most of 2021. And I was like, we're all vaccinated. Why not? And I think she even might have had the booster before we went. So we decided to go, and everyone was masked up. It wasn't bad. It's smaller. I mean, my biggest complaint is like they had the same amount of space they always have, but instead of like spreading things out and using that space, they smushed everything together. And
That's no good.
It didn't make any sense. Like the only reason I could think to possibly do that is to make it seem like there's more, but like the whole point of having like a lower attendance and doing all these other things was to spread it out so that like you're not on top of each. Like they could have made the aisles bigger. They could have. So what if we had to walk like two or three booths down to get to the next one? I think overall that would have been better. A better way to handle it.
I would expect so. Yeah. No, we did Game Hole Con this year because everyone was feeling better, and we were starting with the booster shots and that sort of thing. But Gen Con just seemed like a little bit too big of a petri dish.
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty good. Like Thursday and Friday, everyone was masked up, and they're and wearing them right. It wasn't until Saturday I started seeing people with the mask below the nose, and like one person was told to put their mask on. Also, I'm very kind of like indifferent, once the vaccines got out. So I'm kind of like, well, everybody that can be vaccinated and wants to be vaccinated can, and I feel pretty good about being vaccinated. So.
Oh, I do too. My wife gained a breakthrough, and my mother gained a breakthrough. It was a bit of a shocker there because they were fully vaccinated. But,
yeah, well, it's still going to happen, but you're not going to have like the really bad outcomes.
Yeah, it's not an immunity scroll; it's a bonus to your con save.
yes, essentially.
But neither one of them. My wife certainly didn't have it that bad. She was down for a week.
Yeah.
Started crocheting more.
Didn't have to resort to use it. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, she started. Have you ever played the game called Wingspan?
No, it's a
game. So it's all about birds and bird watching. And one of the pieces are these little plastic eggs. So she knitted, actually. I keep using the wrong terms and she gets on me.
Yeah.
Knitted bird's nests while she was recovering from COVID.
Okay.
To put the eggs in. So instead of in a little plastic cup, they're in these little bird nest cups. So it's, she made use of her time.
Nice. So how much gaming are you getting in nowadays?
Oh, I've got my weekly Discord game, which is we're running a multi-genre Savage Worlds game right now. And then I've got Pendragon on Sunday, and we follow Pendragon up with board games, whatever board games people feel like doing. Wingspan, Betrayal: A House on the Hill, whatever. I mean, Zombicide. We do a lot of gaming, not as much as beforehand.
Yeah.
We used to have a Sunday game and a Saturday all-day board game meetup that we attended. But we aren't going to public places to do that. It's small. It's, people who are vaccinated, who we all know, have known for years. So it there's only so much time you can spend getting the house cleaned and cooking dinner. We do a good dinner when we game.
So we game like 3 Saturdays out of the month. But December is just a lousy month with, we've got PAX Unplugged coming up. We got Christmas is one of those Saturdays. And then my wife's family gets together like 80 times for Christmas before it's all said and done. So the 4th was the only Saturday we have open, and instead of playing gaming, we just Ted decided to invite over the 3 gaming groups, so whoever can come over, and we're just probably going to do board games or something.
Yeah, we tend to reduce the gaming a bit during the holiday season, and because we know it's coming, we plan out in long-term campaigns. How is this character going to be out for this weekend? How's that character going to be out for that weekend? Because we've got a gaming group of 7 people, so we're used to someone's got to miss something.
Adulting's hard.
Well, the whole thing's hard, and we're mostly middle-aged. Half of us have kids. In fact, one weekend is canceled this month because all of our kids are going to be in the middle school winter play.
Oh, yeah.
Winter concert. So it's like, hey, we're not having a game that day. We're just going to go here. And then, the ones who don't have kids are like, well, what am I going to do? You're going to come to the winter concert.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Seems kind of cruel and unusual punishment to subject them to that.
Yeah, but you got to lay the guilt on them every now and then.
It's true. I mean, I'm a parent, and I always dread those things. I'm like, because they're generally terrible.
Yeah, the only thing, we have a truce agreement on school fundraisers.
Okay, yeah.
We don't bring those to the table because we're not going to force the people who don't have kids in that school. You got to donate twice.
Yeah. Ugh. I've always hated those fundraisers. I'm just like, can't we, like, when kids show up with them, my wife will always buy something. I'm like, can't we just give them money instead? And because it's like so little of that money actually goes towards the school anyway. It's like, I would rather, instead of buying the overpriced thing, let me just let's just give them $10 or $20 or whatever.
Well, the first fundraiser of the year this year really caused some significant damage because it was a popcorn fundraiser. And I didn't realize till after we got our popcorn that it's from our local pop. We have a little pop around the clock store that just sells popcorn, and it was from there.
Okay.
And then I get it. I'm looking at the label. I'm like, this place is over on Hart Street, and this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's right next to, we have a drive-through soda only stand in town. So you're sitting in line at the drive-through soda only stand, and there's the cheesy popcorn place right there.
Oh, wow.
So you turn
a drive-through soda only store?
Yes. We've got 2 of them.
Not one, but 2. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. So they've got, every type of soda you can imagine. They do ice cream and shakes and Frosties and that sort of thing. And there's now adding a fry-later and that stuff to the menu, but it's pretty much a drive-through soda place.
Yeah, that's
you can
weird.
pull up. Yeah, you can pull up and be like, hey, can I get a large Mountain Dew with a shot of Tiger's Blood syrup? And they're like, yeah, sure, here you go. $2.
What is Tiger Blood syrup?
It's that coconut cherry flavored syrup. So they got all those coffee shop syrups.
Okay, gotcha.
And you get a squirt of those in your soda if you want.
That's almost like the old school fountain sodas.
Exactly. Yeah, you can get a Coke with a shot of cherry in it.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous place to have in your town. It's very easy to, drop $2-3 a day there.
Sounds like it. I don't really drink much soda anymore. Diabetes and stuff, but
Oh, I understand. I
understand. I'm working on it.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, my wife usually gets the Coke Zeros and such like that.
Yeah.
It's a drive-through soda place, and right next door is a walk-in popcorn shop. So you're sitting there in the drive-through to get a soda, and you look over at your wife and you think you can get some popcorn and get back in the car before we get to the front of the line? And she's like, just watch me.
Mission Impossible style. Dun, dun, dun. Now, if it was your D&D game, they'd actually have a real tiger in the back where they just cut them.
Exactly.
Did someone order the tiger's blood?
Yeah, it's a fun little. This is I mean, it's a small town with its quirks and its good parts and bad parts, but we've got 2 drive-through soda places. One's got a fry later, and you can get fried mushrooms with your soda if you really wanted to. And the other one, and I don't know why, this has been since weird stuff just happens like that, but their big claim to fame is drive-through soda and drive-through beef Manhattans.
Beef Manhattans?
Beef Manhattans.
Like booze.
No, no, like the sandwich with the.
Oh, I've never heard of a beef Manhattan sandwich.
Yeah, it's like roast beef on rye with gravy and mashed potatoes. I'm like, that's good, but I'm not getting that in the drive-through.
It's also very oddly specific too. Like,
yeah,
that's all that they just have the one sandwich.
I think they got tenderloins too.
That's
but
funny.
Yeah, I'm not driving through town with a beef Manhattan in my lap. I mean, it's gravy.
Yeah, it's a bit
potatoes.
messy. It's to go. You take it home.
Yeah.
So we are at the end of the. We're just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out.
Make sure to check out the Tome of Horrors 5e Kickstarter. Our stretch goals. I'm writing all the stretch goals. We've got 2 types: treasure tales, which is where I take a look at one item from the book. It's inspiration, give you adventure hooks, story hooks, and then a similar item or an alternate item you can use instead of it. And then trinket tables. Everyone in 5e loves trinket tables. We're doing trinket tables we've got dwarf tables, elf tables, tiefling tables, dragonborn, rogues, rangers, clerics, wizards. We've got a table for everybody. D100 trinket tables.
Nice. Everyone loves trinkets. That's true.
Everyone loves trinkets.
As always, there's a bunch of links down in the description to go follow along. Go check out the Kickstarter. Until next time, stay nerdy.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.